The fashion industry is finally catching up with its sustainable practices. I hope, I think. Why is it important for platform to strongly focus on drastically reducing overproduction and waste in fashion? And how are you doing that? And you're perhaps through the customization, you're reducing the waste
Yeah.
because it's bespoke.
Yes, correct. That's one of the elements, but it's not the entire answer. Obviously, customization and hyper-personalization or personalization at large pertains to a certain set of products, but it may not be applicable to everything. Our take on this is to really power on demand on all levels, from mass to fast to luxury, premium, all of the sectors, and not just to fashion, also to fashion and home industries, which is obviously growing as well. And the idea is that we look at different formats of it, and we try to plug in with our technology wherever there is a use case. There is an enormous, shift now towards, small batch production, localized production, and really being able to essentially respond to an on-demand, call from the client. So you put a product out, and perhaps in a day or two additional to what you would get in a normal course of deliveries, you can actually have things made just in time. And we strive towards powering systems like that because that's how we really tackle this tons of clothes being, thrown every year, goods essentially, where just 1% are recycled. We've got to have a proper systematic and technological answer to that, and that's what we strive to offer.
So Platform powers digital customization for luxury brands. We've established that. Hermes, Dior, Gucci, Fendi, Zegna, Sergio Rossi, as well as retailers such as Nordstrom and Farfetch. What is a typical day like working with such major luxury companies? How does that partnership work?
Again, not trying to make it overly complicated, or complex. My approach to this would really to try to demystify how that looks like. First of all, it's important to recognize that each one of these entities has an agenda, roadmap, criteria, KPIs that they need to achieve, and we work closely with them in achieving those. But they both essentially all united under, I would say, a single factor, which is striving to service the customer in the best possible way. And how do you define that today? You've got to respond to customer needs that are beyond transaction. You've got to deliver on elements that the consumer cares about, which is what's happening in society at large. They're more and more concerned about also sustainability. So we are a big part of a solution that comes into place to tackle that and to together collectively be a part of that task force that delights the customer. Because delighting the customer today, it's a continuous shift, right? It evolves, and today it means it's absolutely much more multifaceted than it was 5 or 10 years ago. So that means that we work very closely with each and one of these entities in identifying, problems that they have. Sometimes it may lead also to a different set of extension to our solutions, or sometimes even new innovation and products that we co-create together. So it's really exciting, but essentially it's working together and solving the problem of overproduction through creative means like we have been doing, and also working together in identifying a new set of challenges and problems where we as a technology company can perhaps help them fulfill.
Yeah, so you said by creative means. Do you have an example of a project that you've been excited about or proud of that you can share with our listeners?
Sure, absolutely. It starts even from the very, very early days of, launching PlatformE. We have an in-house sneaker brand called Swear, which actually comes from like 90s, and Jose designed it. It was essentially rave shoes, with
Jose.
big platforms. Yeah, many different incarnations, right? But we use that as a showcase, as a test case for our technology. And working with local retailers, they wanted to have a physical embodiment of how would that look like. And I remember we came up with this really creative solution, which is still out there on the internet, of course. It's a 4-faceted pyramid where one can key different options and a hologram pops up with the actual sneaker that they've designed that they can order in real time. So that was one of the creative solutions that we've done. We constantly actually innovate. At the moment, we are in a process of, piloting and launching a platform that essentially acts like a Slack for producers and brands to link together into real-time work, reducing the lead times, reducing the need to sample, back and forth on pricing, the admin time, and actually making them more efficient. But also more sustainable, which is really key for us.
Amazing. Obviously, you've got a plethora of experience and really wise. What advice would you have to a startup founder or any founder in the SaaS space trying to sell to sell a SaaS idea or technology business to business to a company? I think there's some underlining threads that might be helpful and insightful when you have this idea and you're trying to garner this kind of business.
I mean, fashion, luxury overall, particularly fashion and luxury in specific when it comes to consumer goods, I would single out, is notoriously difficult to penetrate. If you are not a part of the network or if you don't know where to go, etc. So advice to those that do not have the luxury of the network and they have to start somewhere, I would say be very, very critical to the problem that you're solving, because sometimes, the industry can be slow to react. So you can indeed solve a problem, but it may not get any airtime,
Right.
out there, and it might not be seen as relevant until it's acute. Be patient because your time will come. But at the same time, I would say one of the things that I see from tech founders trying to cater for the industry is that sometimes there can be that classic tone deaf aspect on both sides of the equation. And unfortunately, the industry is so systemic that you need to work it through, right? So my advice to founders would be try to identify and try to clearly vocalize the problem that you're solving, truly listening to the other side and trying to come as approximate as possible to whatever they're trying to solve today, versus in day after tomorrow, which is
Right.
typically the tech approach. It's not even the problem of tomorrow, it's the day after tomorrow problem. And fashion, as we know, they can scrape collections, a week before the show and start all over again. And there is this very strange resilience and scrapping and starting again. So sometimes things, unless they're really immediate, can truly, lack planning long term. And I think as an industry, it's trying to reconfigure itself to avoid that. And I actually commend that. It's the right approach.
Wonderful. So let's move on and talk about the company Twig. I read that Twig is listed as one of Europe's fastest growing fintech companies.
Yep.
What is Twig and what makes it so special?
Twig is the next generation in fintech. I truly mean that. It is essentially a way in which its users can list, value their wealth, and also release, liquidity, release instant value from things that they never knew that had any value. And that's very, very powerful. It's essentially a call to revisit the notion of wealth and what does that mean 2023 and forward. In short, Twig users can list all their assets on Twig. They can value them instantly and they can turn them in cash at any point in time. Now that in itself is a massive, massive convenience, as we know. We could all do with a bit of that. But the buck does not stop there. It's, in essence, it's a circularity-driven service. And circularity is very much the reason to be rather than an afterthought, where you're simply giving the chance to users to release value out of something that maybe they wouldn't understand the value of or throw it away in the worst case scenario. So landfill is the ultimate enemy of Twig, and it's got a great success in terms of challenging that. So the motto is don't bin it, twig it, and release value of things that you own, or at least understand, what is the worth of what you own. I think that's a very healthy way to look at finance today. And if you look at the new generation of, say, Gen Zers and younger millennials, many of the generation, would have maybe tons of cash, but they all have things, right? And the idea is also when they buy things, they want to understand what is the resale value of those things. So they're much more aware of the idea that ownership of their goods can be released at any time and release value. And Twig very much operates within those parallels. And I'm personally very passionate about that. That's definitely the next chapter.